Just about 21 minutes after the hour of 7 o'clock, welcome back to the Now Morning Show on this Tuesday morning. Are we ready to work from home? Well, we're going to discuss the issue with Human Resource Management Association and, of course, its president, Mrs. Cavell Joseph St. Omer. Ms. St. Omer, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, and thanks for inviting me and for having me on the show.
Now, earlier we would have had Mr. Tiwari from the AmCham, from the CEO of AmCham, and he was giving his personal perspective in terms of how the work from home policy has been working for him. Now, when we consider a work from home policy, what sorts of criteria needs to be put in place? Because I'm thinking there might be a different strategy to implement when we think about public service as it relates to private service. So what sort of things must we consider?
Well, whether it's a public or private entity, there's similar factors to consider, right? Naturally, of course, the nature of the operations,
Right.
because not every job can be done from home. That's just the reality. A construction company, a laborer or fabricator, a welder cannot work from home. A bus driver cannot work from home, a receptionist can't. So you have to factor in the rules, firstly, in the organization, and what can be done at the office and what could be done from home. What you have to consider with public versus private now is whether or not the services in it, the services that need to be delivered to the citizenry. Oftentimes you hear citizens complain about the quality of public service when they enter into these institutions, and there's a face front that is required on some occasions to interact with the public. So therefore, from a customer service perspective, those roles and responsibilities will have to be done at location on site.
Yeah.
We also have to consider the dynamic between whether you unionize or non-unionize. Now, a major problem for the state is the fact that they have to engage in negotiations with the union in order to change how they operate, change the operations. And work from home, you consider also the contract of employment, because there are significant terms and conditions of that contract that will shift as a consequence of you shifting the way you operate. So for the state, I know sitting down and negotiating with all the unions, it has to start, the conversation has to start, and I do believe private, public, and unions need to work together on this in the interest of the public good. What has happened because of the pandemic is a shift occurred in society, right? So you find the needs of the average citizen has changed. People have reflected, they have reevaluated what is important and not important to them, and COVID actually showed us what is important, which is family. We kind of reprioritize our health and mental well-being during that time, and therefore, because of that shift that has occurred, and we were already in the fourth industrial revolution, COVID just kind of pushed us a little bit further.
And even advanced.
Yes,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it accelerated it. So as a result of that now, you find people are now unwilling to return to similar terms and conditions. And for those who are there, the concept of silent quitting has emerged. Now, in Trinidad and Tobago, we always knew what that was. So when I hear all over the world, oh, silent quitting, I'm like,
Yeah,
we've had
it's
this
just
a long
new label.
time.
We've been doing this. We've been knowing about this.
Yes, work the rule, go slow, whatever you want to call
Yes.
it. But we've had it, right?
Yes.
So now you're seeing more of it where people are coming in, but they're resentful. They don't want to be there anymore. And they're looking for flexibility and empathy and a listening ear, because you're seeing more and more even mental health issues in the workspace and all of that. So a lot has changed that requires a re-evaluation and a repositioning of this.
Now, when we think work from home, is work from home, because a lot of people think work from home is Monday to Friday, I'm out of the office, I'm working from home. But are there different models? Let's say, for example, you work from home 3 days a week, 4 days a week, and then does it depend on the needs of the organization to exactly determine which work from home model works for you?
Of course. And that's why I say companies have to evaluate, and the state as well too, because I'm certain there are some ministries that could be just as effective with a hybrid system, right? So there's an element where you would have to come in. Checks have to be signed. You can't sign a check remotely, right? There are things of a financial perspective that cannot be accepted in a digital format because of the laws that are in place as well too. So our laws need to shift to accept a little bit more of the digitization that we are promoting, in addition to now the systems, and by systems I mean it could be IT system, as simple as VPN access and the securities around that too. We've seen a lot of hacking even before COVID with Trojan attacks and ransomware attacks, right? So it means all your systems have to be in place, because your employees will now be accessing your server from home. So it opens up the gateway for attacks, right? And the loss of data as well. So the state and companies have real concerns, you know, and it requires a major investment in the capital infrastructure to have those systems in place that will support it. also managers need to be trained in, in how they manage, right? We already had a challenge, so whether we want to admit it or not all managers by title means that they're good people managers in principle either, right? So managing performance in a hybrid system, and I'm not talking about seeing someone visible in the office and walking around to see what's on their screen, right, whether they're working or not working. That is not what I mean. But in terms of KPIs, deliverables, how many managers sit at the beginning of each year of the performance cycle and say, these are your KPIs for this year. This is what I'm looking for in terms of what you need to achieve over the next 6 months, over the next year. A number of them don't know even how to do that. So as a result of that, they need you to be there physically and give you instructions on a day-to-day basis in person, as opposed to saying to you, this is the plan I have for you for this year. First quarter, these are the targets, second quarter. So therefore you go off and achieve and meet my targets.
You see, I'm glad you raised that point, because I'm looking at the new model for working from home especially. And is it that we need to get rid of that 8 to 4 tie or that 9 to 5 tie and just bring it down to measurables and what is expected of the employee?
Well, in some industries that already occurred, like in construction, a contractor would hire someone, a fabricator or welder, and say, they'll say beat out, right? Right. Beat out that how much iron or how much steel for me, right? And once you achieve that, you're done for the day, basically. So in some environments that occur in a warehousing environment, once you pack out X amount of shelf or how many cases, that's it for the day. So in the corporate environment now, we have to find ways to say, these are the targets. Once you've achieved, whether it's 100 letters to be sent out, once that is achieved, that is fine.
Regardless of that 8 to 4, 9 to 5 kind of tie, okay.
In addition, flexibility as it relates to the hours of work. Now, in my organization, what we've introduced to improve where that is concerned, because I complained about traffic when I came in this morning, right?
Yeah.
So the problem we also have is everyone heading in the same direction for the same time. So if we were to stagger those hours now, say 6 to 3, 7 to 4, 8, 9 to 5, shift the hours a bit so people are coming in at different intervals and leaving at different intervals for those who have to come in to headquarters, so to speak. That will help alleviate even the traffic situation on the roads.
Do you think a conversation can also occur where we decentralize most of where the buildings are located? Because Port of Spain is the hub for a lot of buildings. And so if it is we decentralize and we move it to different locations, would that also help the work from home situation? Would we need a work from home situation as well?
Well, the thing is, decentralization has been a conversation for a very long time on the table. It started with a lot of, they see like the Ministry of Agriculture is now in Chaguanas, for example, the headquarters, right? So it started a while back where we were trying to get headquarters out of Port of Spain and into other cities or other urban areas, right, across the country. And we need to move a little bit towards that as well. But you also have to look at where the courts are, where the major financial services are. Most of the time, companies want to be near to those services. But if we switch to online modes of accessing the services, then there's no need really to physically be somewhere, right? If we could actually go online and get an end-to-end, business-to-business, a complete transaction done online, then there's no need for the physical movement of people in the mass quantities that we see happening. But the technology, the enabling technology is critical. The software is to protect it as well so that your data and information is not lost. And of course, the skills of managers to lead people, to motivate, to manage their performance, ensure the deliverables occur, that is absolutely critical as well. And trust. Yeah. That's another issue.
Right, and that is my next question. Because a lot of people, when you start the conversation about work from home, it's like, okay, I know this employee can work by themselves, but I don't fully trust this employee to work for themselves. So how do we get that level of trust between employer and employee to ensure that while they're working remotely, they are in fact working?
Well, what exactly is trust? Most of the time, we have performance challenges and other disciplinary issues that people fail to address in the first place, and they boil it down to trust. If I'm saying I do not trust you to do your job, it's because I have a performance management issue with you, and I should address that. I should be, through the disciplinary policies and procedures, bringing you into alignment to the standards that I want you to perform at. And if you're not performing, through that same policy and procedure, you exit the system. And I say workers actually fire themselves. They tend to blame employers. Now, we know we have employers that are unscrupulous, so don't get me wrong. But there are other circumstances where through your behaviors and actions that you have basically or essentially fired yourself from the job, right? But managers or those in leadership roles cannot be fearful to take the necessary actions or to have the conversations with employees about their performance. So the minute I am saying, I don't trust you to do your job, so you are working virtually and we have an interview like this online, and I don't trust you to get up to start at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever time you're committed to, then something has to be wrong with that relationship. And it means that I'm not managing you effectively enough to get you to that performance level. Also, it can mean that I've made a bad recruit. Now, we have a lot of that as well, where employers could be accused of negligent hiring. You know somebody is not skilled, you know they don't have all that is required for the job, but you still hire them and then expect them to do everything under the sun. You've been negligent, right? And who suffers in a system like that? The worker, because they're set up, in my opinion, to believe that they could do this job because they were hired. Some of them are called managers, some of them are given fancy titles, but they actually cannot do the work as well.
They can't perform any role,
Yes. So you've made a bad decision, and then now is all this pressure on the system, and everyone pays in a system like that, you know. Because I don't trust you means everybody have to suffer as a result of that.
Now, on the other end of the scale, when we think about maybe the employer being negligent with the employee hiring, how does that translate into support, or is support a totally different thing? So are we looking at a negligent hiring differently from the support an employee would need when they begin working from home?
Well, there's support given by way of opportunities to develop in a workspace. So training, learning opportunities to be mentored and coached in a system. But again, it requires the systems and policies to be in place to do so. A number of companies don't invest in their workers. So yes, I decided to give you a chance. I know you did not meet all the qualifications that are necessary. I did that. So therefore, it's incumbent on me to now retool you, skill you, give you the opportunity to learn and grow within the role. Employers could very well make a decision like that because I know you'll be committed. You might be actually grateful for the opportunity and therefore be loyal if you see me investing in you in this way. So you find now, because of that dynamic and you yourself improving because of the new knowledge, the new skills that you're getting, your confidence builds, everything builds. So it's a relationship. And I think people forget that. It's a relationship, and we have to both be invested in that relationship. So because some parties are not doing their part, a whole system suffers. When it's unfair to those who are actually producing, who are actually, like when COVID just started, that first month, where there's a lot of uncertainty in place, and we had to work from home in inverted commas, but we were still working, you know. And in fact, the longest were even, the hours, were even longer, right? Yeah. And then when we got a sense of it, because we were deemed essential, I had to come out, right? I had no fear. I came out, I did what was required of me, and I supported my employer. And we put in the policies, the ergonomics in place, everything shifted in the organization so that when people return, they could feel safe. That's what HR did, actually.
And one of the points that you're raising as well is sometimes when we don't fail to put the proper systems in place and we have a system, we blame the system isn't working, rather than realizing that you didn't give a chance to blame the system and give the employees time to work on the system. But in terms of cybersecurity, because we mentioned cybersecurity, is it that the companies as well are going to have to look in terms of giving their employees devices to use? Is it that they're going to have to boost that cybersecurity system that they have to ensure that the confidential information they have isn't hacked?
Well, the thing is, in order to work remotely, I must have the tools to do so, right? So it means laptop, it may mean headphones, because certainly there's a risk also while at home for persons in your space to overhear conversations that they shouldn't be listening to in the first place. It's just like if I'm in a management meeting and we're discussing workplace issues in a management meeting that should be confidential. It means the headphones, ensuring and trusting that I have a secure location to secure the company's assets, VPN access to that server, to digital signatures, ensuring that I don't use my signature or someone else doesn't use my signature on a company letterhead. It's all those things you have to consider. So therefore, security is also the physical asset as well as the intangible assets or the virtual assets, so to speak, the software that goes along with supporting the hardware.
And quickly, because I know we're almost out of time, productivity levels, are we going to be seeing an increase in those productivity levels once we include that work from home policy?
It will translate to productivity. Most businesses that actually even now continue to work remotely have expressed that they've seen some increase in productivity because with better work-life balance, employees are able to produce more. If you know, for example, your child is safe right next door, you have the mental wherewithal to focus on the work. But then for some, it's actually a distraction. So you've heard two sides of the coin, right? I recall one, I wouldn't call the department, but one department in my organization, they actually called to say they wanted to return to the office because of the distractions at home with the kids and all of that, right? So it depends on everyone's circumstances. And that's why a system must be flexible enough so that an employee could come in and say, this is what will work best for me. And based on the role that they perform, they could actually work remotely.
And
it could
give
be
out
supported.
that productivity level.
So it doesn't mean 100%, but a hybrid system. But I want to reiterate that the management and the employees, that trust is important, and the skills to manage it must be there as well.
Yes, and we will end it right there. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Cavell. Joseph Saint-Omer.
Yes, thank you for having me.
You're on the Now Morning Show. We're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.